I spent 15 years searching for my missing brother, but then I found his name on my husband's birth certificate. Let me take you back to the very beginning, before the heartbreak, before the horror, before I realized my entire adult life was built on a lie so deep, so cruel, it could only have been orchestrated by people who understood how to destroy someone from the inside out. My name is Evelyn Rowan, and I was just 17 when my world split in half. That was the day my little brother, Daniel, vanished. Daniel was 9 years old when he disappeared, and he was my entire world. We grew up in chaos. Our mother was an addict, and our father abandoned us before Daniel could even form a full sentence. I became a mother before I could even vote. I made his school lunches, helped him with homework, made up bedtime stories when there was no electricity, and tucked him in every night with the same lullaby I used to hum over his tiny frame. He had this laugh, sharp, squeaky, infectious, like the world hadn't heard him yet. Like he believed it never could. He was small for his age, wiry and clever. Loved puzzles, riddles. Could beat me at checkers by the time he was 7. He used to write riddles on sticky notes and leave them around the apartment, and solving them became our favorite game. Our mother, when she wasn't too high to function, did her best in brief flashes of clarity. But most nights it was me and Daniel against the world. And then one day, he didn't come home from school. It was October 5th. I remember because the leaves had just started turning, and we had planned to walk to the corner store after dinner to buy caramel popcorn with loose change from the couch cushions. He was supposed to be home by 3:45. By 4 o'clock, I was pacing. By 4:30, I had called the school. They said he had been picked up by a relative. We didn't have any relatives. That was the beginning of the nightmare. The police were dismissive. They said he probably ran away. Kids in homes like yours often do, the officer said, barely hiding his judgment. I was furious and terrified. Daniel wouldn't run. Not without telling me. We had a code. A plan, even. If anything ever went wrong, we were supposed to meet at the public library. He never showed. I put up flyers. I knocked on doors. I camped out at the police station. I called shelters, hospitals, foster homes. Nothing. No sightings. No witnesses. No evidence of abduction. He had simply disappeared. At first, friends and neighbors tried to be supportive. But months passed, and sympathy curdled into awkward silence. I kept going. I had to. I dropped out of college. Took shifts at 2 diners. I paid rent in quarters and kept a cardboard box under my bed filled with every tip, every scrap of information. A bus ticket stub someone thought he might have used. A blurry photo from a state fair in Ohio someone sent me anonymously. None of it led anywhere. For years, I had only dreams. I dreamed of him hiding in the walls, of him screaming from behind glass I couldn't break. I would wake up sobbing, sheets soaked, fingers clutching the space beside me where he used to sleep during thunderstorms. There were moments, slivers of time, when I thought I could move on. When the pain dulled just enough to breathe, I went back to school. Became a licensed social worker. Focused on helping kids like Daniel, the ones who fell through the cracks. But I never stopped looking. I never stopped hoping. 15 years passed. And then I met Liam. Liam Bennett was warm, calm, steady. He worked in child adoption law, something I found comfortingly poetic at first. He said his childhood was complicated, and I respected that. I didn't ask too many questions. How could I, when my own family history was a tragedy scrawled in ink-stained newspaper clippings? Our connection was immediate, effortless, even. Like we'd known each other in another life. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. A small wedding followed. No guests from my side, just my close friend Grace and her husband. We bought a home together, modest, sunlit, quiet. I thought I'd finally found peace. We built a quiet life. Sunday grocery runs, dog walks, dinner by candlelight. He never pressured me to talk about Daniel. But some nights, I did. And Liam always held me close and listened with such gentleness it made me cry harder. He never told me to stop. never told me to move on. Looking back now, I wonder what he felt during those moments. If he flinched. If he already knew. It happened on a Wednesday morning, 15 years and 11 days since Daniel went missing. A letter arrived in the mail. No return address. Old envelope. Faded ink. Inside was a single piece of paper, typed. Look deeper. The man you sleep beside has blood on his hands. Ask for his real birth certificate, the one in the locked drawer. No signature. No explanation. My heart thudded. It could have been a prank, a threat. But Liam did have a locked drawer in his home office. A small one at the bottom. I had seen him open it once with a tiny brass key he kept on his keychain. He never said what was inside, and I never asked. But now I had to know. That night, while he was asleep, I slipped the key from his jeans and crept into the office. It clicked open easily. Inside was a folder, thick, yellowed, unmarked, and tucked inside was a birth certificate. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time, blinking back tears as my vision blurred. Name: Liam Nathaniel Bennett. Date of birth: April 12, 1997. Mother: classified, biological sibling, Daniel Marcus Rowan, my brother's name. The name I had screamed into pillows and whispered into empty air for 15 years. And now it sat there, printed in black ink, beneath the name of my husband. My fingers went numb as I stared at the paper in my lap. The air around me felt thick, like it had curdled. I read the name over and over again, willing it to change. Wishing that this was all some terrible, sick misunderstanding. But the letters stayed the same. Daniel Marcus Rowan. My brother. On my husband's birth certificate. A storm of emotions swelled inside me. Confusion, fear, disbelief. And then, something colder. Something that sat heavy in my stomach like a stone. Betrayal. What kind of monster would do this? What kind of twisted game was this? Had Liam known this entire time who I was? Had he seduced me, married me, with full awareness that we shared blood? My breath grew ragged. I clutched the edge of the desk to keep from collapsing. No. It couldn't be. I knew Liam. I loved Liam. I had lived with him, cried with him, slept beside him for 4 years. I had never, not once, seen even a flicker of deception in his eyes. But I had also never imagined something like this could even happen. I stared at the certificate again, trying to make sense of the impossible. His name was Liam Nathaniel Bennett. But if Daniel was listed as his biological sibling, then that meant he had been part of Daniel's biological family. So, who was he really? Was he a cousin? A half-brother? A twin I had never known about? Or was the truth even more terrifying? Was it possible that Liam was Daniel? I couldn't sleep that night. I sat on the living room floor with the document in my lap and the letter beside me. My mind raced through every moment of our marriage. Every time I had mentioned Daniel, every time I had broken down over my missing brother, and Liam had just held me, comforted me. What was he thinking during those moments? Had he known? Or had he been lied to, just like me? The next day, I left work early. I couldn't focus. I couldn't breathe in that office, pretending everything was fine. I came home, pulled the curtains shut, and opened up the hidden box I kept in the closet, the one filled with everything I had on Daniel's disappearance. I hadn't touched it in years. Newspaper clippings, childhood photos, hand-drawn maps, police reports. That awful composite sketch some amateur psychic had once drawn. And then, one photo stopped me cold. It was of Daniel at around age 8, sitting on the edge of a fountain, squinting into the sun, his front tooth missing, and that crooked smile. That smile. That exact crooked smile that Liam had. My skin went cold. I grabbed my wedding album and flipped through the pages, landing on one where Liam was laughing. His head tilted just slightly, one eyebrow higher than the other, a slight dimple on his right cheek. Exactly like Daniel's. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just the smile. It was the eyes too. That same shade of gray-blue. That same intensity. And the ears, slightly too large. The nose, sharp at the bridge. I had never noticed before because my brain had never allowed that possibility to exist. But now, I couldn't unsee it. I needed answers. I reached out to an old contact from my social work days, a case manager named Maria who owed me a favor. I told her I needed to find sealed adoption records tied to a case from 15 years ago. I didn't say why. She was hesitant, but after some coaxing, she agreed to look. I sent her the birth certificate scan. A few hours later, she called me, and her voice was shaking. "Evelyn," she whispered. "I don't know what you found, but you need to come in. In person. This isn't normal." When I arrived, Maria handed me a file. Inside were photocopies of government documents, most were blacked out. But one section was still visible. Subject name: Daniel Marcus Rowan. Removed from biological family due to exposure to criminal activities, abuse, and potential danger. Enrolled in federal witness protection under Juvenile Identity Restructuring Protocol. New identity assigned: Liam Nathaniel Bennett. I dropped the file. Stumbled backward. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a distant cousin. It wasn't a brother of a brother. My husband was my missing brother. Liam was Daniel. The government had done it. They had taken him from me. Hidden him. Lied to him. Changed his name. Buried his memories. And made him forget everything. Even me. He had been a child. And they had erased his life like it meant nothing. The program was designed to protect witnesses, and Daniel, as it turned out, had testified against someone dangerous. A man our mother had let into our lives. A man involved in trafficking children through group homes. Daniel had seen something, said something, and he was taken for his own safety. They told him his family was dead. They gave him a new name, a new backstory, a new life. And somehow, impossibly, fate had brought him right back to me. But now the question haunted me louder than any other. Did he remember? Was Liam still in the dark, trapped in an identity that wasn't his? Or was he hiding the truth from me all along? Had he married me knowing who I was? The betrayal wasn't just in the system. It was in every single smile he gave me, every kiss, every touch. If he knew, I would never forgive him. And if he didn't, then someone had stolen both of our lives. I couldn't look at him. That night, Liam came home like nothing had changed. He kissed my cheek, asked how my day was, told me he brought home Thai food, my favorite. I stared at the plastic bag in his hand like it was radioactive. The man I loved, the man I built a life with, had no idea that I had just uncovered the truth. Or worse. Maybe he did. I mumbled an excuse about a headache and locked myself in the bathroom. I sat on the floor, my back against the bathtub, and tried to regulate my breathing. My hands were shaking. I felt like I was crumbling from the inside out. What the hell was I supposed to do? He was my brother. My little brother. And I had kissed him. Slept with him. Married him. My mind couldn't hold it all at once. It kept fracturing, like someone had dropped my reality and the pieces didn't fit anymore. There were flashes in my head, images of us laughing on our wedding day, tangled in bed after Sunday brunch, holding hands at the park, overlaid with memories of a tiny boy with scabbed knees and missing teeth, hugging my waist and begging me to read him bedtime stories. They were the same person. And somehow, I hadn't seen it. I thought I might lose my mind that night. I barely slept, watching Liam breathe beside me, listening to the soft rise and fall of his chest, wondering how this could happen. How we could have ended up here, in this tangled, nightmare version of our lives. But by morning, my grief had calcified into something colder. I needed answers. I needed the truth. I started slowly. "Did you ever go by another name?" I asked casually one evening as we sat on the porch with glasses of wine. He looked confused. "No, why?" Like, when you were younger, in foster care? He shrugged. I mean, maybe? I was in a bunch of homes. People mess up my name all the time. But my legal name's always been Liam. Why? I smiled. Just curious. He sipped his wine. You've been asking a lot of questions lately. I leaned back. Just trying to learn more about you. He smiled. But there was a flicker behind his eyes. A flicker I had never noticed before. And suddenly, I wasn't sure if he was as innocent as I hoped. Over the next few days, I began to test him, in ways he wouldn't notice unless some part of him remembered. I changed my ringtone to the lullaby I used to hum for Daniel when we were kids. The moment it played, I saw his shoulders stiffen. He didn't say anything, but his expression faltered for a moment before he smiled and said, "That's pretty." New? Then, I planted an old photo of Daniel and me inside a cookbook we rarely used. I left it half open on the counter. Later that night, Liam stood in the kitchen, staring at the photo in his hand. His eyes were wide, almost glassy. "Where did this come from?" he asked. I walked in casually. "Oh, I found it in a box of my mom's things." "Recognize the kid?" He stared at it longer than I expected. "No," he finally said. "But something about him feels, I don't know, familiar?" That night, he had a nightmare. He thrashed in bed, muttering, his skin damp with sweat. I leaned closer and heard him whisper something I hadn't heard in over a decade. "Evie, please don't leave." Evie. Only one person had ever called me that. In the morning, he acted normal, made pancakes, kissed my forehead. But his eyes lingered on me too long. He was unraveling, and he didn't know why. I, on the other hand, was falling apart with full awareness. I started seeing a therapist, not for peace, but for strategy. I needed someone to help me untangle what was real from what was trauma. What was forgivable, and what wasn't. Because how do you process the fact that you've built a romantic life with your own flesh and blood? How do you look in the mirror and not shatter from the shame? I wanted to confront him. I wanted to scream. But I also wanted him to remember. I wanted it to be his realization. So I started planting more breadcrumbs. The comic books he loved as a kid, I bought them and left them on the coffee table. His favorite cereal, the one he hadn't eaten in decades, suddenly appeared in the pantry. I even started humming our childhood riddles under my breath, soft enough that only a subconscious would catch. He began to withdraw. Sometimes I'd find him sitting on the stairs, lost in thought. Other times he would stare at me like he was seeing something else entirely. He started asking more questions. Did we ever meet before we officially met? Have you ever felt like maybe fate brought us together? Do you believe in past lives? I answered carefully. I think some people are meant to find each other again, even if the world tries to keep them apart. He nodded slowly. That's what it feels like I've known you forever. And then he said the words that nearly made me collapse. Sometimes when I look at you, I feel safe. Like I used to know someone who made me feel like that when I was little. I almost told him right then. But I didn't. Because I needed the moment to be perfect. 1 week later, I took him on a spontaneous weekend trip to our childhood town. He asked why we were going. I told him I found a small lake house rental and thought we needed a break. The second we entered the neighborhood, he grew quiet. The roads, the trees, the red painted gas station on the corner. His fingers gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary. I've been here before, he whispered. Maybe on a school trip? I offered softly. No, I don't think so. I remember that tree, he said, pointing at the giant oak beside the old corner store. I used to sit there. With someone. Someone? A girl. Older than me. She used to hum this tune. And then, without realizing it, he hummed the lullaby. My lullaby. The one I used to sing when he had nightmares. We parked near the old house we grew up in, now abandoned. I had already spoken to the landlord and gotten permission to walk the property. He stood frozen at the door. I've been here, he said again. I handed him an envelope. Inside, the birth certificate. His real one. He stared at it, then at me. And I said 3 words. You are Daniel. He stared at the paper for what felt like forever. The birth certificate trembled in his hands. No, he whispered. No, this isn't real. But it was. And deep down, something in him knew it. It's you, Daniel, I said softly, taking a careful step forward. You're my brother. He backed away like I had struck him. His face had gone ghost white. I'm not. What the hell is this? I didn't respond. I just handed him the photograph, the one of us as children, sitting on the steps of our old home, his arm around my waist, both of us grinning like the world hadn't begun to rot yet. He dropped the paper. His knees buckled. He sank to the ground, shaking his head over and over. I remember. The stairs. That tree in the yard. The song. He looked up at me, eyes wide, voice cracking. You were singing it in the kitchen last week, and I didn't know why I knew it. His hands gripped his scalp. No, this can't be happening. You're my wife, Evelyn. His voice broke. Evie, I whispered. That name stopped him cold. Only one person had ever called me that. And it had been 15 years. Something snapped. He screamed, this guttural, broken thing that tore through the abandoned house like thunder. He started sobbing, curling into himself like a child. I didn't move. I didn't comfort him. Because I had spent 15 years crying alone in the dark. 15 years searching, grieving, dying a little more every time I came up empty. Now it was his turn. We didn't speak on the drive home. He drove in silence, knuckles white against the steering wheel, his breath ragged and shallow. I stared out the window, stone-faced, my tears long dried. Once home, he went straight to the bedroom and locked the door. I heard him throw up. Then silence. For the next 3 days, we barely crossed paths in our own house. He avoided me like I was poison, but I wasn't done. Not yet. You see, grief is quiet, but revenge, real revenge, is orchestrated. And mine had just begun. It wasn't enough that he remembered, that he broke, that he fell apart. I wanted the people who did this to fall with him. I reached out to the journalist who'd once helped me look for Daniel years ago. He had since moved on, built a career reporting on government corruption. When I told him what I had uncovered, the forced identity changes, the erased sibling relationship, the state-sponsored amnesia, he almost didn't believe me. Until I gave him the documents. The sealed federal files. The scans from Maria. The hidden witness protection orders. And then, the wedding photos. He stared at them in horror. You married him? He asked, voice low. I didn't know, I said. But someone did, I added. Someone made sure we wouldn't. He published the story under the headline. They erased his past to save him, and made him marry his own sister. It went viral overnight. Whistleblowers came forward. A former government psychologist admitted that in rare juvenile protection cases, children's memories were compartmentalized, not always erased, but buried, especially in traumatic situations. They called it memory fogging. Liam Daniel had been part of a test case. They said it was for his protection. They said it was better than leaving him in danger. But they never once thought to track me. To tell me he was alive. They let us cross paths. Let us fall in love. Let us build a life. Let us share a bed. And when the world found out, they called it an unfortunate anomaly. The fallout was immediate. Liam lost his job. His law license was suspended pending investigation. Our marriage, a legal, documented marriage, became the center of national debate. But I wasn't ashamed anymore. Not of what happened. Only of what was done to us. I sued the state. Filed lawsuits against the agencies that placed us in each other's orbit. I demanded justice not just for me, but for Daniel. Because that's who he was now. He wasn't Liam anymore. But revenge doesn't always come in courtrooms. Sometimes, the real punishment is memory. Liam had no one left. His entire identity, the one he had clung to for decades, was shattered. He remembered our childhood in flashes now. The peanut butter sandwiches. The knock-knock jokes. The fort we built from sofa cushions. He remembered me, not as Evelyn, his wife, but as Evie, his sister, and that destroyed him. The last time we spoke, we met at a diner, the same one where I used to work when he went missing. He looked thin, pale, his eyes tired and red. I remember everything now, he said quietly. I remember the night they took me. I remember screaming your name. They told me you died in a fire, that I had to forget you to survive. And now? I asked. He looked down. I wish they'd let me die instead. I said nothing, because part of me agreed. 3 months passed. The media circus eventually died down. The public moved on, as they always do, to the next scandal, the next tragedy. The lawsuits were pending. Government agencies had gone silent behind walls of legal red tape. And I tried to live again. But how do you begin again when your story feels like a closed loop? When you wake up each morning with a phantom weight beside you, not of a husband or a lover, but a brother who had been stolen from you twice? I sold the house, donated most of our belongings. The memories clung too tightly to the walls, to the kitchen where we cooked, the hallway where we kissed, the bedroom where he held me like I was all he'd ever known. Because I was. Even if he didn't remember it until it was too late. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name on the front in handwriting I knew instantly. Daniel's. Inside was a single page. Evie, I'm leaving the country. I don't know who I'm here anymore. I'm not your husband, and I can't be your brother either, not like this. Every breath feels like a betrayal. I see your face and I remember both the love of my life and the only family I ever had. I carry shame in my bones now. But I need you to know something. I did remember you. Not everything. Not clearly. But there were moments, flickers, a voice, a smell, a riddle. That's why I asked you out. Why I felt drawn to you. I told myself it was fate. I didn't know it was memory. And I kept quiet because I was afraid. Afraid of what it would mean. I thought maybe the universe was giving me something back. Someone who felt like home. And it was you. I'm sorry. Daniel. I sat with that letter for hours. I read it once. Then again. Then I folded it, pressed it to my chest, and sobbed until my voice gave out. He had remembered. Somewhere deep inside, he had known. That was what tore me open the most. Years passed. I started over, slowly, quietly. I moved to a new city. Threw myself into work. I joined a nonprofit that advocated for children lost in the foster system. I told our story once, anonymously, to a group of caseworkers during training. Some cried. Some shook their heads in disbelief. All of them swore they would never let it happen again. But even now, all these years later, when I walk through grocery aisles or hear someone humming that same lullaby in passing, my heart skips. Because the truth is, Daniel wasn't just taken from me once. He was taken from me twice. Once by the system, and once by fate. But life, cruel as it is, still had one final twist to deliver. It came one spring morning, 7 years later, as I sat reading a book by my garden window. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. No caller ID. I let it go to voicemail. Then curiosity got the better of me. I pressed play. A child's voice came through the speaker. A boy. Hi, I think you might be my aunt. My name is Theo. My dad says I was named after a riddle. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should find you. Are you Evelyn? My heart stopped. And for the first time in years, I whispered his name. Daniel. He had a child. He had a son. And even after everything, after the lies, the trauma, the erasure of our lives, he had found a way to leave me the only thing more powerful than revenge. Hope.